What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Talk with Taylor show. My name is Taylor Garcia. Thanks for tuning in. This is episode number 2. I'm so excited. Actually, I will probably say this is kind of like episode number 1 because the first episode was just kind of more of like an introduction to me talking about what I'm going to be doing. But let's say this is episode number 2, right? Like I said in the first episode, there's going to be a lot of topics that I'm going to discuss, some of my struggles, failures, successes, and so on. But then I'm going to have other people on to kind of share their point of view of maybe some of my struggles and successes and kind of get into those as well. But for this episode, I would love to kind of discuss what it's like working with family, getting into a family business, especially for in my situation, it was my in-laws, which is sometimes people say it's even crazier than working with your family, right? But I have a pretty unique situation, and I kind of want to dive deeper into that and kind of share my journey of getting into the business that I'm in, working with my in-laws and my wife each and every day, and what that looks like, good, bad, and ugly. So let's get into it. All right. So let's kind of start from the beginning. I'm not going to go over everything because I'll be here for 7 hours. But it all started. I met my wife in 2013. I was a touring musician. I was traveling the country playing drums basically each and every day. I was working at Guitar Center to make a little bit of money, but I was just a musician, and I really had no intentions of being a business owner, no intentions of being anything like that, or an entrepreneur, or anything like that, sales, anything really in that regard. I was going to be a drummer full time. That was what I was going to do. And the night that I met my wife, I was at a show. We were playing in a great show at the Glass House in Pomona. It's a great venue. And she was there, and my parents invited her parents because they were friends, and this whole story, right? But she was there, and we ended up meeting that night and just really hit it off. Fast forward a little bit, when we were dating, she always had more money than I did. She was always paying for things. We joke because she drove on our first date. She paid for the first date. I don't know why she let me in on a second date, but she did. And, that was kind of an eye-opener for me because I realized, man, I don't really have a lot of money, nor do I make a lot of money. I wasn't born into a family with money. But I always wanted nicer things, and I always had the drive to be better. And especially when I was dating her, I had no money to afford anything. So it really kind of pushed me to go, maybe I need to do something else. But at the same time, I was still really going really hard on being a drummer. One day I'll make it famous and I'll be rich and famous, right? Yeah, that didn't work out so well. But that's kind of what my goal was, right? And then as we were dating, I would go visit the agency. I'd visit the insurance agency because my wife worked there. She was the accounting, person there. And I'd go in and bring them coffee because I didn't work till later in the evenings. So I would go in, I'd say hi to everybody. I was just newly dating her at the time. So the in-laws were still a little scary. They both had the corner offices, the big offices, and it was so intimidating as somebody that was just a musician, a broke musician, right? But I'd go in and say hi, give everybody the coffees, and then I'd leave. And as I kept doing that, I don't know, there was something about me each time I went in. I was like, this seems it doesn't sound fun, doesn't look fun, but this seems like it's like something. Wow, this is impressive, right? And my wife always had a good amount of money, and I was just like, dang. So again, same old, we were just doing our things, still struggling with money. And when we ended up getting pregnant with our son, I was touring a lot. We were in the midst of getting married. We kind of did things backwards, but that was kind of the moment of going, oh shoot, maybe I need a job, right? And maybe it was me saying that, but also it was my father-in-law pulling me aside going, dude, you need a job. And I knew that. I knew that before he even said it. This wasn't me being naive. I knew exactly what I had to do. And it was a really hard moment of like, do I put this stuff down? But I need to be a dad. This is what I want. This is what I've always wanted, was to be a dad. At the time, I was touring a lot, like I said, and we were supposed to play in Japan. And in Japan, they were going to play this big place because the singer of our band was a voice actor and for like anime. So he was huge in Japan. It was going to be a big thing. And I couldn't go because my son was going to be born at that time. So I couldn't go. And that was kind of the moment of like, okay, I need to hang this up. I need to get something real. So I went for my insurance license test because my father-in-law offered me a job to sell insurance there, and it was great. It was not great because I went to take the test and I failed like the first 2 times, and I was like, oh, no, this is it. I'm done. I am so over this. I can't do this. I'm going to go back to working at Guitar Center playing drums again. And I did it one last time. I was like, okay, I'm going to give it my last shot. I'm going to try it one more time and just see what happens. I passed, of course. So I was working at the agency. I didn't know a damn thing about insurance. So I was just helping where I could, file papers, answer the phones, get whatever I needed to do to help others, and while they trained me. And then as I started selling insurance, I realized, man, I'm not the best salesman. I'm a better marketer. I'm a better brander. I can get people to reach me. I'm not good at reaching them, right? And that kind of started the whole rabbit hole of like marketing and social media and posts and just getting people in the door. And that was the bulk of how I got business, was just social media, making posts, making email newsletters, whatever it was, to get people to call me because I was too nervous to call them. And it was great. However, please keep in mind too, at this time, we were newlyweds and I'm working with my wife and we have a baby and we're all in one office. So we got one big office, and it was my father-in-law, my mother-in-law, who was accounting, my wife, who's in accounting, and there's me. Everyone else in the agency was just hired, except for one other person that was like a sister of mine, Kylie. So there was like a few family members in the mix. And it was really, really difficult especially in the very beginning, because I didn't know how to put on that work hat and not the family hat, or not the husband hat, or the dad hat, or the son-in-law hat, right? And so I always kind of struggled with like, oh shoot, this is my boss, but she's also my mother-in-law. So this is kind of a weird balance. And I think a lot of people in business, if they're working for their dad or they're working for their mom or they're in a family business, I think that's one huge struggle from what I've heard from others, is that balancing act of they're still dad, but they're my boss. I got to respect them in this regard, but they're dad. Come on, dad. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people that work in family businesses struggle with that. I'm assuming it's a little different if it's your parents. I don't know what that's like, but I know as for my in-laws, it was even almost more uncomfortable because I didn't know them as well. The only saving grace I will say throughout this whole process was they were so great at making me not feel less than or anything else. They were so welcoming and so accommodating and made sure I was comfortable, and they were really good at balancing the in-laws and then the work. We'd go into a meeting, it's like, okay, this is work related, and it was just a good balance. And a lot of people would tell me like, how do you work with your wife? This is probably that's probably the most idiotic thing you could have ever done, because you're going to go home after work and like you've been with her all day. Aren't you guys you're going to get so sick and tired of each other. And that's what I got told every single day. And every single day when I did it, everyone said I was crazy. And the other on the other side was, you're only here because you married the boss's daughter. And that was really hard. I didn't want to be that guy. I didn't want to be in the position I was in because I married the boss's daughter, right? I knew Clark when I worked at a country club in town, and Clark's my father-in-law. He's the owner of Jackson and Jackson Insurance. Just so you guys know, I have Clark Jackson is my father-in-law, Monique Jackson's my mother-in-law, and then my wife Sam. Just in case you guys don't know, I knew him as Mr. Jackson because I used to clean his golf clubs at the country club back right out of high school, and so. Just a weird thing that I ended up marrying his daughter. And, but you know, it was really hard to juggle that. And let me see where I was going with that. He was really good at, you know, splitting the two. Hey, when we're at home having dinner, this is different than when we're at work. And the one thing that I just never wanted was Taylor was handed everything. And him and I had very long talks of, hey, you're going to have this harder than everyone else here. You need to be the first one here and the last one to leave. You need to earn your spot here because everyone's looking at you through a microscope saying, Taylor's just here because he's married in. And he was absolutely not wrong. And so that's what pushed me to just go all in. I went all in to this, and I just went hard and I dove deep into it. I took my CIC classes, which is Certified Insurance Counselor, is a bunch of courses to take to further your knowledge in insurance. I was doing everything I could to be the best I could possibly be in the agency because I knew that everybody was looking at me kind of like, as I was like, who is this kid, right? Because I was young too. I was only in my early 20s. And so it was tough. And I think anybody else, and to relate this to other people in family businesses, I think there are a lot of kids that just assume they're going to be the owners or assume a certain thing because their parents are the owners. And I never wanted to have that. I never wanted to be that person that was like, well, I'm going to be the owner one day, right? Because I didn't think I was. And I didn't think that he was going to offer to have me buy the agency or me to be in that position. And it was just, hey, I'm selling insurance. I need a job. I got a kid to raise. I'm a new dad. We're trying to buy a house. Like, I need stuff, right? So I never really thought about it that way, other than I don't want anyone to think that I don't deserve the spot that I have. And again, at that time, I wasn't really in any higher spot. I was just a salesman / service rep. So, but at the same time, I just I wanted to make sure that, you know, everybody there knew that I was taking this very seriously. You know, and we did have some rocky roads. We did have some time where, you know, I worked with my brother-in-law from my sister's husband, and that was a little bit hard, right? Because we're all family and we're trying to blend work with family, and it was really, really tough. You know, he ended up not working at the agency much longer, and he ended up going into a different field of work, but that was hard. And then, you know, working with my wife, thankfully, I will say, working with my wife, we've never really argued at work, or we've never really felt the feeling of like, oh, we're sick and tired of each other. It was always a blessing to me. It was a blessing to me because my son was there. I didn't have to pay for daycare. I get to see him every day, but I get to still work. And to me, it was amazing. And the relationship I had with my in-laws was amazing. They were so helpful to me and taught me so much as I grew. You know, there were certain things that my parents just didn't teach me, and they were there to teach me. And they were showing me how to be an adult. And it was really, 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 what's the word? Fulfilling, I think. I don't know. It was just really, really awesome. And a lot of people were surprised to hear when I would say, you know, I love working with my in-laws. Like, they've been awesome. They've been super cool. They've been so accommodating to me, you know, helpful. They're teaching me everything. Like, this is great. And so I will say, of course, there was times where we would work all day together and then go on a vacation together. And there's times, I'm not going to lie, and if they're listening to this, I'm sorry, but I'm sure they're not surprised of like, I just need a little space. I need a little alone time, or I need a little alone time with my wife and kid without mom and dad there, or stepmom or mom-in-law and dad-in-law there. And we even lived with them for a while to help save for a house. So it was just, we were all like meshed into one, right? It was just really, really crazy. And I think anyone that is working in a family business in any type of way, you have to come at it especially if your parents or somebody like that are the owners of the company, you can't go into it thinking you got a free ride. It's never going to work. And I assure you, if there's a team there, if there's a whole staff there, they're going to look at you like a joke if you're going to walk in and do no work and assume you're going to be the top dog. There's just no way it's going to happen. And I learned that very quickly, and thankfully Clark, kind of drilled that into my head early on. So I will say that to anyone listening that's, working with the family that sometimes struggles with it. I get it. There's struggles. Of course there is. And some are better than others. And I've heard some horror stories. So I'm not saying that this is all a walk in the park, I just got lucky. I really did. Because my in-laws listened to me when I struggled, or if I had an odd request, or if I was asking for something that was kind of bizarre, or, shoot, I want to go on to do something else. What should I do? And we would talk about it. So they were really, really open to conversations, and I can't thank them enough for those, because that's what saves me. That's what saved me, and that's why I'm still here today. Because I've heard horror stories of some people with their family that just, tell them, shut up and get back to work. Like, you're not in charge. You know what I mean? And they wouldn't even listen to them. And it's just, man, it's sad. It's really sad, because I could see how that can ruin a family very quickly. And I never wanted that. And I would rather not work at the business if it was going to ruin our family. Thankfully, it never did. So let's fast forward a little bit. I've been here, now to this day. What is this? 2013. What in the world? 2023. It's almost September, I guess. Yeah, it's September of 2023, and I've been here almost 10 years, and it's been a wild ride. My wife and I still work together to this day. We've been together about 10 years and a little bit more than 10 years, and it's been awesome. I think people still think I'm nuts for saying that after all this time. But I do. I really enjoy it, and I know she doesn't love insurance. She wishes she'd be doing something else, and eventually, at some point, hopefully, I can get us to a spot where she can do whatever she wants to do. But for now, she gets a good check. We're both making decent money to where we can live comfortably in a nice home and everything else. So. Yeah, that's kind of in a nutshell how I got into the agency, right? Married in, I was the son-in-law, that was destined to fail from all the rest of the team. It was like, oh geez, here comes another kid, married the boss's daughter. But no, I took it and ran with it. And everybody thought I was miserable, because they're like, Taylor, you gave up your passion of playing drums and you are now an insurance salesman. How horrible. Oh my gosh, I feel so sad for you. And a lot of people would do that, come up and apologize to me. I'm so sorry. And I was like, why? I'm making more money than I've ever made. I'm able to provide a life for my family. My hours are flexible, so I could go to my kids' events, and I could go see this, and I could do that, and I could do these things. I'm not tied down from 8:30 to 5. Like, everything about what I was doing, I was loving. Don't apologize. And, and then it was like, oh, it must be hard, though, working as having your in-laws as your boss. I was like, no, they're amazing. And it was just a lot of that. And I think that, I want to emphasize this. I know not everybody's situation is that way. I think the bulk of people are the opposite. I think majority of people struggle to work with family. And don't get me wrong, like I said before, I still struggle at times with the family, right? It's just too much of family at one time, or we're button heads, or I don't want to say this because I don't want to upset her. I don't want to upset my mom-in-law or my father-in-law, but this is work related. And of course you're going to have those. But I think if you could get past that and hopefully the family that's maybe harder to work with, or the family that you're working with, are open to these ideas of, let's have these conversations. Let's set you up for success here. I think that's really important. But unfortunately, I know not everybody's situation is that way. So I truly think, though, if you're planning, and like for me, it's a little bit different because I think in the old generations, that was expected, right? I'm going to have this business. My son's going to take it over one day. But what if my son doesn't want to do that? Well, too bad. This is the way it's going to be done. And I think now, as the generations go by, like for me, as I take over Jackson & Jackson and I kind of run the agency, I am never going to expect my son to take it over. Now, if he comes to me at some point and goes, Dad, this is what I really want to do, awesome. I will be overjoyed. But I would certainly not be upset or disappointed in him if he doesn't take this, because I know that's a really hard path as the son, working with Dad. And I know that, and I mean, for me, being in a situation of working with my in-laws that were really great, I think I have instilled some value to where I wouldn't be that dad that's not open or not listening or stuck in my ways, and my son wants to do all this crazy technology and I'm going to say no way. I don't think it'd be that way. But I know that's not easy to work with Dad. Maybe he wants to do his own thing, and that's totally fine. I will never push him to be something that is, what I want him to be. And I think in the previous generations, I think that's what a lot of dads did. That's what a lot of parents did. This is the path. You go to school, you get a degree, you come work for the family business, And sometimes it was a blessing, sometimes it was a curse. I've heard stories, and it's just so sad sometimes to hear. And then you hear other stories that are amazing. So again, I'm not naive to it all. I just am thankful, and I'm blessed. And I thank God all the time that we just happen to have a really good relationship working with the family here at our agency. Again, have our struggles, but it is what it is. And the one thing I will say too that was really helpful, because when I came into the agency, we had like no technology. I will say my father-in-law had a really good agency, but it was a lot of old school ways of doing things. We didn't really have a website. We really didn't have social media. None of this stuff was really being, pushed. And I will say, as the son-in-law coming in, I was pushing a lot of that up front. Hey, we need a new website. Hey, we need to be on social media. Hey, we need to be doing this. Hey, we need new technology here. And of course, I probably came at it wrong. Of course, when I was first starting out, because I didn't know how to approach these things. But from a young guy looking at it, I was like, we are so outdated. Oh my gosh. I will say everything I went to my father-in-law with, hey, I think we should do this. And he's like, okay, tell me more about it. And I tell him, and he's like, what is that going to cost? Right? That's his thing every time. How much is this going to cost? And I tell him, he's like, okay, do it. Love it. And I was like, what? Really? And that was 90% of our conversations. The only times really he said no was when it was going to cost a lot of money, or I was going to change something drastically. And I think that was huge into making sure our relationship was good, because I think a lot of kids come in with all these ideas and the dads or the parents go, nope. I've been doing it this way for so many years. I'm not doing it that way. We're successful, so why change what's not broken, right? He always listened to me, and he always, for the most part, took my advice. And now sometimes, obviously, they were bad ideas, and I paid for something that totally flopped and failed, and I wasted money. And I think that's always going to happen. But the fact that he was open to listening to me and hearing me out was huge. So I always felt like I was heard, especially as I grew in the agency and I was getting better and I was more of a long-term employee there. He really kind of took my advice more and more. But it was one of those things that if that wasn't the case, if he just shut me up every time I had an idea, I wouldn't want to be there. Who wouldn't want to be there? Right? And I think as I grow into being a leader, I'm very aware now when somebody comes to me with an idea, the last thing I do is shut them down. I hear out the whole plan, right? Yeah, let's sit down and break this down. Let's get into this, because he did that for me and it really, really helped. And maybe we didn't even do the idea, or we didn't even go through with it, but the fact that we broke it down and we talked about it and he heard me was all I really needed. Because after I started to talk about it with him and I said it out loud, I'm like, oh, you know what? Maybe that's not the best idea. But now that I'm saying it out loud, I kind of realized. This can go into a whole nother thing. However, I kind of wanted to focus just more on the family side today, of just like working with family, what that's like, especially with your wife, and you got kids in your office. And now there are times, even to this day, I struggle with being dad, husband, son-in-law, vice president of the agency, producer, whatever it is. I have so many hats that in my office where my kids are running around, I got to be dad. And then when my wife comes in about something about maybe our finances or something, now I'm husband. And then one of my employees comes in and has a problem. Now I got to be the manager or the leader and the vice president. So I'm constantly having to shift hats, right? And it's not easy sometimes. But I will say over the years, I've gotten better at it. And I think for you too, if you're doing this over the years, you'll get better at it. It may be really hard right now. It may seem really difficult. And maybe I'm the only one. I don't know. I don't think I'm the only one that seems like this is all great and dandy. I've heard a lot of people say they don't like it, but I'm sure that you're out there that are like, hey, I also enjoy working with my family. This is great. Let's grow it together. We could all be successful together. I have no ill feelings. I have no feelings of trying to push the older generation out. None of that. I have goals and ambitions to take over and be the new leader. And I have, things of that, but I'm nowhere. I know, kids or stuff that get arrogant and they go, Dad, you're out of here. I'm the new guy in charge. And I don't know. It's just, it doesn't really work. I don't know. It just seems like it's always a fight, and I don't want that, nor did I really have that. And I was really blessed with that. But so if you are currently working with family, or you're considering working with family, my few things I strongly recommend. Make sure that you put your work hat on at work. You keep your family hat outside of work, after work, right? You go home, put that family hat on. When you're at work, you put the work hat on. I'm the boss. I'm not talking to my father-in-law. I'm talking to Mr. Jackson, the owner of the company, right? And I think that's really important, especially as the kids. You got to go into work knowing that hey, at work, we're discussing work. Now, okay, if some family stuff comes up, okay, but for the most part, this is work stuff. And I think that's really crucial. The second thing is have respect, especially if you're now I'm talking to the younger generation on this one. If you're coming in and it's your dad or your father-in-law or whoever it is, uncle, grandpa, whatever it is, have respect from where they've come from, how they built it to where it is now. I think a big part of my respect to my father-in-law was what he's built already. Not looking at all the stuff he should have been doing or he hasn't implemented because there's all this new technology that he wasn't trying. I look and I go, man, you really built this from down here to up here, and you did it with just knocking on doors or calling people or networking in your community or whatever it is. Have respect and look at how he did it and respect that. Now, things have changed, and let's try to add some new technology to help with that. But look at it from a perspective of, look at what he has. Now, again, if he hasn't done all that and the business is not doing well, then that's a whole different story. But if the business is successful, look at it from a point of view of like, he did it with what he has. Now, maybe you can add some things to make it better. don't go in cocky and arrogant thinking you can just go in and flip it and change it because you know everything, right? I doubt it, because he's probably knows more than you. Actually, let me rephrase that. He definitely knows, or she definitely knows more than you, because they've been doing this a lot longer. So go in humble, right? Don't go in arrogant, cocky, trying to change everything because you think you know more. It's 99% of the time not the case. So that's 2. And then the last one I'd probably say is, let me think about this for a second. The last one I'd probably say to help work with family is just, this is a hard one. I don't have a lot of advice on this because I think I just got lucky, and I've only been through this once. I just came in very humble. I appreciated where he's at and what he's built, and man, I'm drawing a blank here. But yeah, with all that being said, working with family is hard. It can be a blessing. It can be a curse. So hopefully, if you're in a family business, hopefully it's a blessing, and hopefully your whole family's just loving it. You get to spend time with your family, your kids. You're growing something that's going to be passed down in a generation maybe, and just keep it going and enjoy it. And don't try to push that older generation out so quickly. Enjoy it while they're there, because they're going to be gone at some point, and you're going to look back and go, damn, I was kind of a dick, right? You don't want to be that guy. Enjoy it while you can. And because eventually you'll get to a spot like me, where now I'm a few years out from buying the agency. My in-laws are retiring. I got the corner office now. I'm in charge of the team. And there's a lot that's happened over the last 10 years. And a lot of it was being patient, keeping my head down, doing what I need to do, helping where I need to help, but respecting them as the owners of the company for now. And if as long as you do that and you keep going and you keep helping them grow it, I don't see why you shouldn't be the next owner of the company. But go in with a humble heart, patient mind, right? And so on. So that's kind of my 2 cents on working with family and my story. Oh man, it was a long story, right? Of working with family. And I'm going to continue working with family probably for the rest of my life, whether it's my wife, maybe my kids, somebody, my cousins, I don't know, who knows? But, it is, it's a fine line. There is some balance needing to be made. And, especially if you hire somebody like a cousin or an aunt or an uncle or a sister or a brother, and you're the one in charge, that could get a little tricky, right? Because you need to have that hard conversation, but they maybe look at you like your cousin. So they're like, Taylor, come on. And that's hard, because you have to kind of draw that line and go, nope, we're talking business here. We're not out on a Sunday birthday barbecue having a beer. Like, this is work. So yeah, I think there's a lot of back and forth, and I think there's goods and pros and cons and everything in between. But I hope you got something out of this episode. If anything, you got a little background of who I am and me working with my family and and that. So that's about it for today. I hope we catch you soon, and I hope you listen to the whole thing. If you did, I don't know how long this is, and it's been about 30 minutes or so. But yeah, so we'll catch you soon. We'll stay tuned for next week, because we got a couple really good topics in the next coming weeks. So stay tuned, follow, subscribe. Please share with friends and family or peers at work if you think there's somebody that can take away some value from this, because I'm still new at this. So please give me some grace here. But so follow, subscribe. We'll be here next week with another episode of Talk with Taylor. Thanks again. We'll catch you soon.